Hey everyone, Paul here from Groove 3, and welcome to this tutorial series on Reason 10 Explained. In this series, I'll be approaching Reason from the perspective of a new user, and covering just about every page, menu, and function that you're likely to need to get making music in this powerful, versatile, and fun DAW. So let's begin with the first launch, assuming that you've installed and authorized the product as per the instructions from Propellerhead. Now the first screen that you're presented with lets you choose between online or offline authorization. And a lot of new users think that this means you need to be online to use Reason at all. Thankfully, this isn't the case. The only time you need online authorization is if you're demoing a device from the Rack Store, or you have instruments on a subscription package. Or alternatively, if you have a work studio and a home studio, you could install Reason at both locations and then just log in wherever you are. If you own all of your plugins outright, or are just using the default Reason devices, then you can authorize Reason to your computer from your user account area, and then use offline mode, which is great if you can't guarantee internet access, say at a gig. So with Reason open, let's begin by going to Edit and Preferences, and then just looking over the most important settings. Now in this General tab, you can leave everything more or less as it is, unless of course you would like to use a different color scheme, in which case you can change it here. The only setting you really need to pay attention to is hyperthreading. Now with the current implementation of hyperthreading in Reason, you might find that in some cases it actually leads to worse performance. Now in my own experience, small to medium-sized projects work better with this turned off. As the track count and DSP usage increases, I tend to find that turning it on in the later stages of the project will buy me a little bit more headroom. Your experiences may vary, but to start with at least, I would recommend that you leave this off. Next is the Audio tab. Here you'll want to make sure that you've selected the audio driver for your interface. This series will assume that you have a dedicated audio interface, especially when it comes to recording audio and sampling. If you don't, you can use the MME or DirectX audio drivers that come with Windows, or on a Mac, Core Audio, and probably get by just fine, minus the ability to record live audio. But here you'll see that I've chosen the ASIO driver for my interface. ASIO drivers will always deliver a more responsive experience, so if you don't have a dedicated interface yet, it's well worth investing. Here you can choose which sample rate to work at using this drop-down. Now there are endless debates about whether 96 or 192 is better than 44.1 or 48. And on a technical level, it's probably all quite interesting. But in real practical terms, 44.1 or 48 will be fine for almost all of you. The higher the sample rate, the more powerful a computer you'll need. And unless you're doing some seriously high-end audio work, running at 96 or 192 kHz is going to put unnecessary strain on your computer for no real audible difference. So I tend to leave this set either at 44.1 or 48. Now buffer size determines the amount of delay or latency that you experience between pressing a key and hearing yourself. Lower latency means higher DSP usage, so it's about finding a balance between responsiveness and performance. Normally I would work at 64 samples, giving me a total delay of around 9 or 10 milliseconds, which is almost indetectable. For video work, I have to have this set a little bit higher. Now if you're using built-in audio, you can adjust the latency directly with this slider, but for ASIO interfaces, you'll need to open the control panel and then adjust it there. You can also enable the inputs and outputs of your interface using these buttons. And you see that I have all of mine turned on by default so that they're available and ready for use in my project. Monitoring relates to audio track behavior, and the default automatic behavior is fine for now. This is covered in more detail in the recording audio chapter. Lastly, play in background just allows Reason to continue playing if you switch to another app, like a browser window for example. With a dedicated interface, you can leave this on. With onboard audio, especially in Windows, you might find that you can't listen to sound from any other sources even when Reason is in the background, so you can use this checkbox to fix that. Control surfaces is where you set up your MIDI controllers, although this has gotten a lot easier since the release of 10.2, where newly connected MIDI devices are instantly set up and ready for use, as you can see in Easy MIDI Inputs. Now if you do need to add a controller manually, you can either auto-detect, or you can press Add Manually and then select from List of Manufacturers, choosing Other if it's not on the list, and then selecting the MIDI input, which will display all of the current MIDI sources connected to your computer. Lastly, let's look at the Advanced tab. Here you can add VST plugin locations, although we'll just be dealing with stock devices for this series. More importantly, however, is the Scratch Disk location. Every new song that you create is ready to record audio or import samples, even before you've saved. And Reason uses a temporary location called a Scratch Disk in order to do that. So you just want to make sure that this is set to somewhere with plenty of room, preferably a fast hard drive as well. There are of course various other options, but these are the most important ones to get you started. So let's pause. Make sure that you have everything set up correctly, and then in the next chapter we'll take a quick tour of Reason and its various areas.